Hey, Roland, welcome to the show.
Hey, Steve, how's it going? Nice to see you.
So, a lot of people know you for being part of War Room, Traffic and Conversion. You can name drop till you're blue in the face. Everyone knows you for being hugely successful, always smiling, always happy, and great entrepreneurial spirit. I want to look back and see where that came from. Would you
Okay.
mind telling us a little bit about you growing up and how that entrepreneurial spirit was born?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it was just being exposed to it, right? My father is to this day still, he's 88 years old and he's still actively practicing tax law. And so I got to see like his clients, he was doing that from as long as I can remember. Um, I I think it's just like I got to see all these people doing what they wanted to do, dressed how they wanted to dress. Like they didn't come in the office wearing suits. They came in wearing whatever they wanted, and they did so many different things. Like they did, one of them had figured out this algorithm for stock trading, and one of them had owned a whole bunch of racehorses, and one of them had a gold mine, and then there were all kinds of. One of them had a record store. He was super cool, and so I just got to see the like. I was just like, I want to be like those guys. They just seem like they do what they want to do, and they're not answering to anybody. But but then I kind of got to talk to a lot of them, and the one thing that I saw was the ones that stuck around, the ones that continued to have so much money they needed tax help, were the ones that were really focused on taking care of the people that they worked with, and particularly in being focused on how to keep the customer happy. So that was something that I kind of saw indirectly. None of them ever sat down and said, hey, the secret to entrepreneurial success is you keep the customer happy. But you could tell that that's what they were talking about. And, so I thought, I just think I think it's a combination of maybe how you're raised, your personality, and then getting to see what actually is working out there for me that caused me to be focused on that. I've always been relatively happy guy. So, I think that that's where the happiness comes from. That has to come from inside. But gosh, being able to see how to be your own boss, how to be in charge of yourself, and that one of the best ways to continue to be able to do that is to take care of the people that you're, to truly serve the audience that you've got is pretty cool.
One of the scary things, and you brought it up, was a lot of people look at entrepreneurs, and you actually said it. You said they're not answering to anyone else. They're dancing by the beat of their own drum. They're in control of their destiny. All of that romanticizes what entrepreneurs are.
Mm-hmm.
And entrepreneurs, we're all very happy until the shit hits the fan. So once you've kind of like seen all this and you've got a bit engaged and you've got a bit intrigued to go out there and do your own thing, what was the first entrepreneurial journey you took and how did it turn out for you?
I mean, my first entrepreneurial journeys were probably playing in bands when I was younger. I started playing out in clubs when I was 15, 16 years old. And to the point where I couldn't get back in. They would check my ID coming back in and they'd be like, you can't go in. I'm like, I'm with the band. And they're like, So, and I'm like, no, really, seriously, talk to them because otherwise I can't play. And so I got to kind of get into the entrepreneurial thing in a fun way with that. And then, and then I sold maybe or maybe not, can't confirm or deny that I sold alcohol to my friends in high school out of the back of my car or other things. But, those were kind of my initial entrees into entrepreneurship, and they were both like all of that stuff was super fun. And so my customers that were playing, like my customers were really the club owners and things when I was playing, but they were happy if the audience was happy, and I loved to to play and perform, and that was a really fun environment, and I did that for several years. And then the other market was also quite happy because they were getting things that they maybe couldn't get other places or shouldn't have in the first place. And so, those are your initial customers. But then, like, if I would say, what's my first like true entrepreneurial thing, it was getting into real estate. I got my real estate license when I was 18, and then went on to do real estate developing and things like that, and put together investment deals. And so I did that kind of through college. And I got my insurance license and my securities license. And this was like 18, 19, 20 was real estate, insurance, and securities. And then I just always loved business. And so I got from selling real estate into the ability to buy and sell businesses. And I grew up in the 80s, really was kind of when I was coming into my own. And that was like go acquisition, leverage buyout, Pretty Woman, all of that Barbarians at the Gate kind of stuff. And it was really, really, Michael Milken was my big hero back then. He was the guy that invented junk bonds. And I was just like, this is a world that I am very, very interested in and want to figure out. And between seeing all those entrepreneurs and then seeing the importance through the real estate development side of raising money, I was like, this is a really good place to be. And then I had the benefit of my dad, who's a brilliant tax attorney, saying, well, here's the tax strategies that people use to actually keep more of that stuff as well.
You've always had very much of a game mentality. Now, I've been very honored to break bread with you, to drink tequila with you in Mexico. We've had some great conversations. But the thing that's always fascinated me about you is you'll look at something and you'll go, how can we tweak that? How can we enlarge it? How can we make more money from it? How can we scale it? You don't look at anything as the end product. You look at, okay, this is the foundation. Where can we take this? Now, where did that gamification mentality come from?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've always been I was a gamer early on. So I had, I had Pong. It's like, you look at Pong
yourself like, now. Yeah.
2 pieces of, of light moving up and down, hitting a ball. But so I was into that, and I had, right as personal computers came out, I was able to get a computer and learn how to do basic coding and things like that. And so like, I like puzzles. So anything that's got kind of a complicated set of rules that then you apply facts to accomplish a result has just always appealed to me. So whether it's, I can put lines of code on a computer that will then create this thing, I thought that was just amazing. To here's a deal, how do we figure out how to pay for it without having to pay any money out of pocket, to SEO or securities law, like all of those things have that in common. And I really, really like that. And to echo back to what you said earlier about like the scary thing is that people don't get, like, they think that you're being your own boss when you're an entrepreneur. I got to tell you, I mean, being an entrepreneur is really freaking hard, right? Really hard. But if you see that it's the things that challenge us the most, it's the hardest things that we go through, that's a crucible that turns us into the better version of ourselves, then you can learn to appreciate the hard times. I mean, I've had some really nasty hard times. I've been, I went to jail. I had the United States of America versus me, on a piece of paper, and that's a big, hairy thing to go through. But my life is better as a result of it. And so I think just seeing that, like, man, every hard time brings, in my life, I've seen that every hard time brings insights and opportunities. And my wife says I have a sunshine pump. She's like, you see everything positively. And I'm like, well, I mean, because my experience is that no matter what happens, as much as we might fight it, the world, I believe, is continually conspiring to make us better people. And even down to the physicality of, they say, take cold showers every morning because it gets rid of the dead mitochondria and forms new. And, all of that stuff helps us to be better people. And the people who aren't challenged, the people who aren't challenged don't seem to do much with their lives, in my experience. So the people that stop, the people that give up, the people that decide to retire, even, it's just, I watch them waste away. And I think it's because they lose that renewal, reinvention, reinvigoration that challenge and hard times give us. So I think, if, like, you can ultimately say that that's something, I'm just like, when the bad thing or the challenging thing happens to you as an entrepreneur, if you've got that understanding, you can say, I don't know what it is yet, but I know this is going to lead to something better. And so the question is, how am I going to show up for the challenge? And then if you can do that, then you can get through almost anything. It really eliminates a lot of the fear that you might otherwise have. And it makes you ultimately a happier person, because you're not constantly, my son the other day came to me and he's like, man, God, life is just hard. It's like this happened and this happened. It's like, I'm just getting punched and punched and punched. And it helps you to say, well, that doesn't ever stop, son. That's going to happen forever. So, good news, bad news is like, that happens to me too. But here's the other side of that. And if you can appreciate all that, then it helps that entrepreneurial spirit stay. And you really do see that it's so worth it.
So it's obviously you have fun. That's a very key. If I had to sum up a bunch of words that describe Roland Frasier, definitely I would say fun, because you try to make everything enjoyable. I've seen that about you. And from your spirit here, you're saying that you're challenged to be better. There's got to be companies and businesses and environments that you've got into that you've gone, this isn't working, or the economy's told you no one wants that.
Yep.
The downside with entrepreneurs, and I remember having a conversation with Richard Branson on this once. When do you decide this isn't working? Because entrepreneurs are we're quite stubborn, and we sit there go, no, just another $100,000 or another few hours, or it's just going to. How do you decide? No, this is the time to leave that alone. It's dead and move on.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really big and important question. I'm curious as to what did Branson say?
He said that he's quick to turn off. He said when he realizes that you can't blow any kind of air into it, he's quick to move on. And he said he doesn't look back.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen. And there was a book, I think it's called How I Lost $1 Million. It might be in the stock market, but it says How I Lost $1 Million. And I really like the guy. He basically said he had a lot of success and then he experienced failure. And he's like, I realized that I just was lucky to not have had the failure all through the time until I finally got the failure. And when I had the failure, it was big. And then he studied all of these people and he was like, how do all these people make it? And you've got, and all of the success stories varied so much, and many of them were diametrically opposed to one another. It's like, we'll invest in tech, stay away from tech, invest in people, don't have people in your business. It's like, well, then what is the secret to success? And it turns out he found that not until he studied failure did he really find a common thing with all of the most successful and the wealthiest people. And the thing was that they cut their losses. So for me, I also share that. To me, it's you need to establish a date or a number by which a project is going to perform at a certain level. And if it doesn't hit it, you need to do what most entrepreneurs don't do, is you need to cut it off and kill it then. Because most people are like, no, man, just a little bit longer, just a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit more money into this. I'm going to feed it a little bit more. It's like, no, it performs or dies. My wife, it was really cool. My wife said when, after I went through that big challenge that I went through with the government and prison and all that crap, she said, I came out and I had several businesses, and one group of those businesses was really, really, really down. And it was to the point where like a buddy of mine who had been a friend for, over a decade was like, man, I love you, but I just can't keep doing work for this company and not getting paid. And I was like, yeah, I totally get it. And so I told her, I said, I am going to loan the business. It was really funny too, because it was so little. I'm going to loan the business. It was like $8,000, $7,000-8,000. I'll loan the business $8,000 so that it can send out mail, because that's what that business did. And the people that ran it had decided that they would save a lot of money, because if you eliminate the number one cost, mail, printing and postage, then hey, the problem is that when the mail that was already out stops coming in, then you're going to completely not have anything. It's funny that would be something that people would decide to do, but they did. And so she said, okay, and then if that doesn't work, you're going to put more in? I said, no. If that doesn't work, then this business is done. The business is here to serve us, not the other way around. The business is supposed to support us. We don't support the business. We invest in the business, but we only invest this much. And I said, so I'm going to put this in. And if the things that they're saying are true, then we will lose that money and the business will die. But that will be the end of that investment. And it served us well during the time. But on the other hand, if I put that in and it returns, and it turned out that I put that in and it returned about $800,000. So this was kind of a crazy, like, hey, what if you just actually, do what the business model is? But so I think that's it. And her saying that made me realize how that was in fact my philosophy, is the business is here to serve us. And so I think that for any project, you have to have a drop dead moment that you identify and you say, I'm not going to invest past this. This is the budget. And if it doesn't make within this budgeted time and this budgeted investment of cash, then it's dead. And that is truly what, then I read that book later on, many, many years later. And I was like, that's really cool that while Buffett says, don't invest in things you don't understand. And, maybe Zuckerberg says, invest in tech. They both cut and run from the things that don't work within the time that they're supposed to work. And that's kind of cool to have a unifying. It's like that was a moment when I was like, oh, I've got, quantum physics and cosmology all figured out now. I've got this unifying theory of investing and making money and surviving and being successful. And so I assume that everything that I'm doing right now is going to not work 5 years from now, which also keeps me hungry and gamifies for me life and investing, because it's like, man, one thing's for sure, the world is always constantly changing and new opportunities are created by that. So if we're just living on the laurels of our old investments and putting more money into those, hoping they will work, there is a cycle to everything. Everything, no matter how successful, there's a cycle to it. So if we don't recognize that and say, maybe we're just in the wrong part of the cycle, either too early, or, they say the pioneers are the people that have all the arrows in their backs, right? Maybe that's too early. And so let's not get into NFTs and things like that now. Or maybe it's too late. It's probably too late to do buggy whips, right? It's just not that many people need those right now. So there is a cycle. And if we can identify that, plus put a hard stop to it, then I think we can avoid a lot of pain and agony and failure.
Now, you've always been a great student. You've made it very, very clear that you constantly want to learn. We've discussed books, we've discussed authors. You've constantly tried to surround yourself with challenging education. And we knew each other from masterminds a year ago with Joe Polish.
Yep.
And here you are, owning one of the biggest mastermind groups out there, War Room. How did that come about?
That it came about as a result of being a student. So I had online businesses just as actually before really the broad internet was available to everyone. I had a deal with CompuServe where I built a channel. So you talk about dating yourself. Most people don't even know what CompuServe is anymore. And then America Online, I had a channel with America Online as well. And then as the internet became more accessible, it would cost me about $50,000 to build a website to test a concept. I remember that. It was like, I can't believe how expensive it is. It's ridiculous. And so I was in the online world early, and then I was looking for people who were doing well there to model. Because to me, it's like, I totally believe in the 3 M's, right? To me, it's like, if I can find a model and I can find a mentor, and then I can get with a group of people to mastermind with, I'll always be successful in that thing. So I found this guy named Ryan Dice, who was publishing a newsletter. I forget what it was. It was Pre-Digital Marketer. And I subscribed to it. And I was like, these guys are actually doing stuff. It's really cool. And he had this interview with a guy named Mr. X. And Mr. X turned out to be Perry Belcher, who Ryan was partners with. And then I got a letter from Tony Robbins. He was a client of mine at the time, but I got a letter from him from another Mr. X who was having all this crazy success. And it turned out that guy was Jay Abraham. And studying both of those kind of led me to all the other people that were in that world. And then I found out that Ryan was having this event called Traffic and Conversion Summit, and it was going to be their first big event for their customers. And so I went to it in Austin, and I was just blown away. I sat there taking so many notes. I remember my hand was cramped, and I'm left-handed. So like, if you're left-handed, you've taken a lot of notes when the ink is all over your hand, because you're going over what you just wrote. And I had to go to the bathroom, and I got my legs crossed because I don't want to go to the bathroom, and they're not taking breaks because they had never done an event before. So they didn't know you were supposed to take breaks. So they just got up there from like 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. And because it was 2 of them, they could just kind of stay up there. One would go and one come back. And I'm just like, I don't want to go because I don't want to miss anything, because I'm learning so much stuff. And they offered there this mastermind that they had called the War Room, which was their most successful people who were doing things online in the digital marketing space. And so and it's really funny too, because I talked to several of the people. They had these badges that said War Room on them. And I talked to several of the people that were members, and I was like, is this going to, oh man, it's the best thing ever. It's so great. You're going to love it. And I was like, man, I just don't know if I'm going to have the time. And I didn't join it. And I had so much FOMO, Steve, for the whole rest of the year until the next year, that like 6 months before the year, I was like, okay, I'm going to join this thing. Cause it was a lot of money. I think it was 20 grand if you paid up front. And I was just like, I don't know. But I did have the FOMO. And so I went into the next year when they did the second Traffic and Conversion Summit. And I was like, okay, I went up to the desk, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was Perry's daughter that was working. And I'm like, hey, I want to join that mastermind, that War Room mastermind. And she said, hey, I'm sorry, you can't. I was like, damn it, it's sold out. I can't get in. And she's like, no. We haven't printed the application forms yet. Oh, okay, great. So that was my, like, I got to find out about it just by wanting to learn and being plugged into as many sources as I could. And then there was an opportunity to go to this event. I think events, and I know you agree, and you have great events. Those speakeasies are amazing. That events are such a great way to network, and that anybody that does stuff online that's really, really crazy successful has a lot of event attendance in their schedule, because the big deals aren't put together sitting behind your computer. The big deals are put together human to human, face to face. And so that just led to me discovering that this mastermind even existed. And then, oh my gosh, I got in the mastermind, and I went to the first one, and I made so many great connections. And one of the guys that I was actually on the phone with just before we got on here, and that I'm doing an online event with tomorrow, his name is Ed O'Keefe. And he called me after that event and said, hey man, you talked about some cool stuff. I've got this thing where I do stuff for dentists and teach them how to make their practices better. Would you mind doing a telecall with me? And I'm like, okay, so you just call me up and we talk. And he's like, yeah, and they're all on the line. I was like, all right, cool. And we did that. And then after we got off, he called me back and he said, hey, that was really great. Would you be okay if I put several of these guys in a room, with you in San Diego, and we charge them 25 grand a piece, and then we just split the profits with it? And I was like, I would be very okay with that. That sounds fantastic. And we did that, and we ended up having, it was only 12 of them, but 12 of them paid 25 grand to be in the room. And I did this thing for 3 days. And then after that, I think it was 5 of them bought a $75,000 thing from us. And I was just like, that thing paid for itself. That investment in that mastermind paid for itself, not just from that deal, but there were like 5 other things like that came out of that very first meeting. And I'm still connected with, there was only, I think at the time they only had like 15 people in that group, but I'm still connected with like 5 or 6 of those people doing things actively now. The power of that mastermind, the power of events to connect you to people that you can then connect in a mastermind format with, that will lead to lifelong relationships and multiple deals. To me, there's just nothing like it. So every time I get a chance to be a part of one, I take advantage of it.
So how did you go from attendee member to owning part of War Room?
Well, 2 things. One is I'm always asking. So I'm too stupid to know that I shouldn't be asking, that I guess it's impolite or too forward, or that it's not even possible to make it happen. But I am always asking about, hey, can we do something together? Like, is there a chance for us to work together somehow? And so I think that, coupled with, I also believe that you should always be adding value and helping. So when I went to that very first mastermind, I remember there was a lady there who had done this SEO thing for her. Her dad owns a big insurance agency with like 30,000 agents, and she had convinced him to give his best agents to her to build SEO, search engine optimized websites for their insurance thing. And she partnered with some guy to do it. And the guy left her totally hanging. He just like took the money and ran. And she was like at the dinner table that night. There was like 6 or 8 of us that went to dinner that first night of that mastermind. She's, kind of like shedding a tear and saying, I just can't believe this. My dad's going to be so upset and disappointed. And I feel like I let him down. And I was like, what did you promise to do for him? And she said, I told him that I would get him ranked for, for these terms. I said, what are the terms? And she told me what they were. And I said, I'll do it for you tonight. And she's like, what? And I said, I love SEO. I have my own private blog network I built. I guarantee you I can rank for those terms by tomorrow morning. So I went back. She's like, you're kidding me. And she says, well, how much do I have to pay? And I was like, nothing. I'll just help you. This guy screwed you over. Screw him. So I did that for her and solved that problem, right? That giving spirit also extended to the owners of the mastermind. So the owners of the mastermind were Ryan Dice and Perry Belcher. And they had brought someone in to run their company and were having some challenges with that. And they also had some other business challenges that were going on. And I got a lot of business experience and training and being an attorney and recovering accountant and recovering everything else. I was like, I just said, well, have you guys thought about this, and this? And I just kind of, for about 3 years in that mastermind, I always wanted to give way, way, way more than I received. And so when they ultimately were able to resolve the challenge with the person that they had, that was the CEO of that company, we were able to, there was a third of the company that was available that CEO was going to have the ability to earn into. And they just came to me and said, we need some money and we have this kind of set aside anyway. Would you be interested in coming in and doing that? I was like, absolutely. My evil plan the whole time is I want to do that. Right. But I was like, just let me help. And because I was always like, how can we work together? I'd love to do something with you guys. Right. And, so when that happened, I was able to do that. And then we were able to work out a no money out of pocket deal, which is my favorite kind. And as a result of that, I ended up owning a third of Digital Marketer, a third of Traffic and Conversion Summit, and a third of the War Room Mastermind, and a third of all these e-commerce companies that they had as well. So it was a really great investment for me, and it's had about 100x return on it. So that's pretty cool. That was how I came to be part of it. Was just giving and helping and being there, and also saying, hey, I would love to work with you guys if we can figure out how to do it. Because a lot of people don't do that. I mean, it's just the fact that you could think to ask. People are like, I could never be part of that. That's this giant company. Well, I can tell you what, every company that you think is this impossible to get in, smooth running machine that is perfect and everything is totally messed up inside. None of them are perfect. They're all experiencing all of the entrepreneurial challenges that you are too. And so if you've got a particular set of skills that can help them, then you do have a chance to go in and own part of that business.
Now, Traffic and Conversion has gone from a little place in Austin, Texas, to basically a Comic-Con of digital marketing in San Diego. It's absolutely huge. However, I've seen some kind of weird transformation because I avoided it like the plague. Because I got so many invites to it, and I was like, I don't run ads. I don't do this. I don't digital. I haven't. What do I care about digital and traffic? Okay. Had no care about it. Yet when I went, I realized that it was a lot more about relationships and a lot more about business in general than the actual traffic and digital aspect of it. And in fact, you've even taken it further now with and you mentioned it briefly about no money out of pocket and the Epic brands. You again have gone, well, okay, we've got this. It's not the end. It's the beginning. Where can I take it? Tell me about Epic and then walk us into the no money out of pocket, which is going to fascinate people.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So Traffic and Conversion Summit, having gone to the first one or two, I saw that there were lots of opportunities there. I thought it was just the best thing ever and wanted to tell everybody on the planet about it. The quality of the people that were presenting and the things that they were doing and the actionable, useful stuff was something that I just hadn't seen anywhere else. And I had over the years gone to quite a few events trying to see like who actually does that, so that who actually teaches that stuff so that like you can actually get something out of it. And I didn't see it anywhere else. So when I came into TNC, there was nothing that I felt I could do better there. I think those guys absolutely nailed it. What I did see the opportunity to do was to expand it. And so to create more awareness through using celebrities, that was something that I was able to, because I had done a lot of infomercial work, so I knew how to get a hold of celebrities and work with them and contract with them. And so we started that. Our first celebrity in 2013 was William Shatner, and then we kind of went all on up to maybe more business focused celebrities like Richard Branson and but also well-known people like Arnold Schwarzenegger and those guys. And the other big thing was the booths. So at the first one that I went to, that I was an owner of in 2013, we had 4 booths we had 8 booths that did $40,000. They were charged $5,000 a piece, I think, to be there. And I was like, man, there should be a whole lot more. This is a big opportunity. And so I put together the sponsorship team and the program, and we built that. So now they're doing about $3 to $4 million in sponsorships a year now, with hundreds of sponsors and an expo floor and all that, which made it appeal to event companies. So Clarion, which is a Blackstone company that owns hundreds and hundreds of events, came in 2018 and bought 80% of TNC from us. And we continue to run it in terms of the programming and the overall arching vision and all that sort of stuff. But we have the benefit of the muscle and the know-how and the knowledge and the teams at Clarion who are dedicated to TNC, helping us with that. So that's helped that event to be significantly better. And that's what really enabled us. We just made that jump to the convention center this year. And we have tried to enlarge the appeal of it to businesses beyond just online businesses. But what we realized was that, like, while all those businesses are interested in, and you are too, right? It's like, I am interested in how can I get more traffic? It's just, I'm not going to do it. So I'm probably going to hire somebody that knows how to do that would go to that event. But also, you do have a business that is making money or generating attention online. And so knowing how to get your brand out, knowing how to do social media, knowing how to do podcasts like this, that is something that appeals to a lot of people like you and me who aren't necessarily going to pull the switches at Facebook ads and things like that. So we've expanded the tracks at Traffic and Conversion Summit to encompass founders and entrepreneurs and things like that. And along the way, those people typically, we're like, well, one way that you can get more traffic and convert it better is if you just go find somebody that's already got it and you acquire that. So that's where Epic came from. So Epic, which is Ethical Profits in Crisis, came about as a result of saying, well, a lot of the people who might want to grow fast through traffic and conversion also should be growing through acquisition. And acquisition is one of the ways that big companies, Apple and Google and Facebook, they all acquire other companies, right? Apple acquired Beats from Dre to launch Apple Radio. That made it way easier because Apple Radio didn't exist. Google acquired AdWords, right? It was called something else, but Google didn't invent AdWords. They just bought it from somebody else. And AdWords makes up a heck of a lot of money for them. And Facebook bought Instagram and Oculus, right? So and those are just a few acquisitions. So we see that one model for growth is to actually grow by acquisition. Now, the challenge for Apple and Google and Facebook isn't that they can't afford to do that. They've got enough money. It's that they don't have enough deals. The challenge for most people is that they're like, well, I can't grow by acquisition because I don't have a bunch of money like Apple and Facebook. So my desire is to bridge the opportunity to grow by acquisition and the lack of capital that most people have that stops them from doing that. And so Epic is designed to solve that challenge for people so that we can say, okay, well, how can I do what the big people do that I know that will help me grow faster without having an unlimited checkbook or going out and raising venture capital funds or stuff that I don't even know how to do? And so sharing with people the strategies that I've used over the years that started with real estate. All that stuff started with, how can I buy real estate, no money out of pocket, right? And then I was like, well, what if I did this with businesses? And then throughout that time, I found that there are literally hundreds of ways to acquire companies with no money out of pocket. And if you can learn to stack each of those things, you can really acquire almost anything. We had somebody do an $89 million acquisition, no money out of pocket, with a company that was making $20 million a year in profit, right? No money out of pocket. That's pretty cool. We had a guy that got private equity to give him $100 million to buy companies without coming out of pocket, because he used the no money out of pocket strategies to start acquiring Amazon FBA companies. And that's exciting. So and getting the feedback from those people about how they're doing this and using this stuff is just so fulfilling.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of those success stories, and I've had a lot of people coming out, because the way you actually put things is, and I'm trying to be careful with my words because I'm not as articulate as you put them in a simple, stupid manner. You literally lay it out and go, hey, it's not complicated. It doesn't have to be. You go, and that happens. And it doesn't happen for $10. You end up having like $10 million or $20 million. You were one of the founders that came to me, or the instigator came to me and said, charge for your time. And I remember you having that conversation. And again, the stupid person isn't the person that doesn't understand it. It's the person that doesn't action it when they're told what to do. So when you said, hey, you should charge for your time, I'm like, great, there you go. And I remember I used to charge $250 for 30 minutes.
Yep.
And the downside was I got a lot of business, but I was now on the bloody phone like a call center from Orlando. And so then I had to raise it to $500, and now it's $750.
Yeah.
And again, you went, great, you've done that. That's a platform. It's not the end. Now, see, you've always had this kind of joyous, childlike simplicity about how to enjoy what you're doing, but how to amplify it. What's next?
Well, the thing I'm doing now, which is also what I would love to help you do, is using those opportunities. So to me, a lot of people will come to me and say, I'd like to do a deal with you. Like, I get people that say that now. I'd like to give you equity in my company to be an advisor, whatever. And so I turn that around, because I found that, as I'm sure you did too, that if you say yes and go in, then one, you're drowning in opportunity, which stops you from doing other things. Two, those people haven't made an investment in themselves, and therefore they don't take your advice as seriously as they should. And they don't value it because they didn't pay anything for it. So I turned those opportunities into also putting back the way I do that is with a consult, and it's a paid consult. So I require them to do that before I'll take equity in their company, even if they're coming saying, my company makes $3 million a year and I want to give you half of it. I'm like, the way I do that is this, because I need to know if we're a fit first, right? And so here's the thing is, now the consulting that you're doing when you're helping people and talking to them about their businesses is very, very valuable to them. And how many of those people have said after that, is there any way that we could work together on a continuing basis?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It happens.
Okay. And what is your response to that now?
Well, once they've gone through the call, and again, I learned that from you. So you get them to go through the call, you get them to go through the paid call, you speak to them, and then you say, okay, let us look at what the offer is. And I ask them to send me information. I make them do some work to send me the information. But really, the first thing I'm trying to do, like you always say, and like I've always known, and this comes from me being a doorman, I'm always very protective of the people I let through the front door.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I care about before your money and your glorious idea and your impact is, can we get along? Right. And that's always my first. So the work that I tell people to do is really just to see, how do they act? How do they come back?
Are they coachable?
Come back exactly. Yeah. Can we communicate?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you've got a brilliant deal, but you can't talk to each other, then you've just taken on a toxic relationship, and they don't work.
So now, when you get someone like that successfully passes that process,
yes,
have they offered you, and have you taken any equity in any of their companies?
I've got two, but I've just started adopting your strategy of making sure that it's in deferred or it's in options to make sure that I don't have the taxable, because I didn't have some of the tax benefit, because everyone's focusing on making the money that they then forget that they've got to pay a lot of it out.
Yeah.
So now I've gone, oops, crap. And now I'm actually getting the back end help. So now I'm starting to pay attention to your rules.
So that's great though. So that, to me, that's the next thing. So that's what I'm really trying to share with people, in addition to the acquisition of companies, that you're not limited by your checkbook, is that also the skills and knowledge and resources that you're bringing to a deal, even just the connections that you've got, are of huge value to people. And therefore, if someone would like to have access to that on a continuing basis, and you feel that you can provide that value, then why not turn that into your investment currency? And instead of paying money to receive stock like you would as a retail investor in the stock market, you're paying your intellectual capital. You're contributing your intellectual capital to these companies in exchange for ownership percentages in those companies, because that is really the opportunity to turn the dancing bear dancing for money, and they, as long as you dance, they throw, into, I'm going to actually create wealth from my intellectual capital. And that, to me, like, that's where most of my net worth has come from, right? Is investing in companies with my intellectual capital. And so you've got tremendous intellectual capital to invest, and watching you start to do that, and then seeing how that turns into tens of millions of dollars for you, is going to be super fun. And by the way, that's like on the side. That's tens of millions of dollars on the side. That, to me, that's a side hustle. That's not the main gig. The main gig is whatever it is that you do that you love doing. And so the ability to, every year I can pick up several $1 million, just kind of, as Ron LeGrand would say, flapping my lips, right? That's kind of cool. And so that's my thing. And I'd love to, to see how you do that. And if there's anything I can do to help you with it, that's, to me, super exciting.
Well, I love getting together with you, and then I come out and I'm like, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And again, it's the idiot that does nothing with this fantastic advice. So I commend you for that. Where can people find out about you, Epic, and everything else that you're getting involved in? Where's the best ways to find out?
Sure. So I also have a podcast called Business Lunch, where I share lots and lots of cool stuff for free. And then I'm on social media everywhere at /Roland, ROLAND, Frasier, FRASIER. I have my Epic Challenge, where I kind of help walk people through the process of acquiring businesses, is getepicchallenge.com. And the Consulting for Equity is at, surprisingly, Consulting for Equity, but it's consultingforequity.io, because I want to get you in and out of businesses.
Oh, that's good. I like that. I like that little twist there. Roland, I love chatting with you, and I love the energy that you actually have. So anyone that's listening to this, do follow Roland. Definitely subscribe to this podcast. It's way better than mine. It's better than a ton of people's. I'm very proud that I've actually been on your podcast. So I've been a guest on there. And I've really enjoyed it. Check out War Room, but definitely check out his social and see how simple he keeps his education. Okay. Roland, thank you very much for being you, and I look forward to crossing paths with you again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.